Yeah, I think what Carol just offered is the well-articulated, passionate speech that I would have written if I wrote a speech for today. In regards to the integration of the critique of free market capitalism and how it runs roughshod on poor people, on the marginalized people, on the people who are not in that upper percentile of property owners and the controllers of capital. And I think what I'll offer in a few minutes is really the challenges that we have as an organization at W2 and as a downside resident, the challenges we have of navigating these incredibly oppressive, difficult times economically and politically, and how to survive and how to thrive in these difficult times. And it's these fresh, critical, very accurate critique that Carol has offered of the problem that I want to perhaps fill in a little bit of our personal experiences. I too am I would say a reluctant technologist, and I'm trained as a printer, so old school Luddite. And but then I think back, I've actually had the same cell phone number for the last 15 years. I built websites in 1995, so clearly I was interested in technology back then as well. And I think about how ironic or strange that makes me feel like. Here I am in relatively first wave or early wave of using technology for community and social change. But I think the differentiation for me is really it's all about appropriate technology and appropriate tools. So I want to bring what I'm saying in that regard, because we're not interested in promoting technology as some kind of silver bullet or emancipatory tool. I think it's really a strategic tool that can be used if it's used appropriately with other tactics in a broad toolkit. Thanks to Carol for framing the political times that we're in. We're in particular in our neighborhood here, the downside side, surviving within a failed social safety net in a dark neoliberal period, which has the federal and provincial government in particular failing poor people and marginalized Canadians. And those are policies that work. Those aren't economic downturns. Those are neoliberal economic restructuring policies that the federal government and provincial government are enacting, and they're enacting quite successfully. And you only have to look at the fact that BC continues, despite the Olympics, to keep winning the record of child poverty for 7 years now in a row, high rate of child poverty, the biggest gap between rich and poor of any province in Canada. We have a whole set of failed Olympic promises. Even for practices like myself, who helped contribute to the inner city inclusive working group statement, which became an intrinsic part of the Olympic bid and part of the commitment that Irwin made to the citizens of Vancouver. There was a commitment to build 2,200 units of social housing, but in fact we lost 600 units of social housing. So there was money for highways, there was money for air transit to the airport, but there wasn't a commitment to the inner city for housing. And that wasn't a missed opportunity. That was a deliberate policy objective, because the gentrification agenda can't work with an empowerment agenda for downside residents. So this is an unusual situation where a community like Dunbar or Lynn Valley, North Vancouver, or any particular neighborhood that you might live in doesn't actually have control over its own destiny, doesn't actually have control over the policy framework, doesn't have control over the management and delivery of the infrastructure of our community. And so in that difficult context, W2 has emerged, and W2 is doing our work. Vancouver Sun famously branded our neighborhood 4 blocks of hell about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Big front page headline, 4 blocks of hell. And I realized that was like from the one corner of the 4 blocks was where I lived in Rural Housing Co-op to Galerie Naché, which I was helping run, which is a mental health art center on Cordova. And those 4 blocks of hell were, obviously had lots of outcomes of the failed social safety net, of colonialism, of violence against women, of trauma, of displacement, of poverty, of low wages, low welfare rates. All those outcomes you see in those so-called 4 blocks of hell. But you also see incredible community of people, the resilience, and creativity and vision and incredible tenacity of the residents in our neighborhood. And what we also saw, though, is other than the Carnegie newsletter, which was a great bi-weekly 1,100 circulation photocopied digest size publication, we actually have very little infrastructure, communication infrastructure for the neighborhood to actually exercise its democratic rights to free speech, exercise its right to communication. So W2's mantra, if you will, is regarding communication as a human right. So W2 is building a communication infrastructure to support the other people in the neighborhood. We're building other pieces of infrastructure like housing, like drug policy, like food security, like daycares, like protection for women and children, all these different issues. We all have these front lines of work, and our front lines have to be technology and communication. We initiated a publication called Fearless, which then became a website and then became a mobile technology project. The outcome, which is which we're watching here, people are watching at home or on their laptops, they're watching AHA Media, which is the social enterprise that April Smith is here live streaming this talk. And it's about democratizing access to technology. So for me, in my role as a community worker, the real kind of comment I want to reinforce here is that we are in service. I see myself as an activist and a community worker in service. I don't see myself as a consultant. I don't see myself as a professional. I don't see myself as an executive director. I see myself as someone, if I had a t-shirt, would say serving the masses. It's about, here we have challenges in my neighborhood, but every neighborhood has issues. Society has a lot of issues, and if you're drawn to the work of social change, if you're drawn to the work of social work, of community work, of environmental protection, of protecting wildlife, protecting victims of male violence, if you're interested in building a healthy world, then we're really thinking about what is our location in that process, and how can we align ourselves, and how can we organize with other people doing this work. And that's the real message I want to say to you, is that in terms of making real social change, and in terms of challenging what Carol talked about, we need to be figuring out how can we be of maximum service to people doing this frontline work, and how can we support and get behind and be parallel with and side by side with people doing this work. Because I think the last thing this sector of social change was the sector, the last thing that the social change sector or the community work sector needs is a consultant class of people offering their experience and their paid contract work, building their client base with the nonprofit sector. What we need in this sector, in community work, is we need allies, we need appropriate technology, we need tools, we need peer training, we need access, we need production, we need distribution, we need facilities, and what we need to do is we need to enable people who are in circumstances, physical circumstances. We need to make it easier for them to do their work. That's the problem with the technology, after all. It's supposed to be less paper and information society. The information society is working for some people, and it's not working for other people. In fact, it's reinforcing the divide. So the digital divide is inherently, I think, one of the things that we all have to work on. If we're talking about wiring the social economy, it's basically about breaking the digital divide. I don't think it's really anything about anything other than that, because we are not in the room. This group of 100 people is not the social change vanguard. We're simply enablers. We're simply workers in service of people who are going to be doing that work and are doing that work. So figuring out not how can we serve our own personal interests, but really how can we serve those movements that are doing the work, and then how can we sustain ourselves. And how we sustain ourselves is another complicated issue. That's really about structuring the work through social enterprise, through peer funding models, through crowdsourcing models, through discussions around priorities, fiscal priorities within an organization, to figure out how can we collectively sustain ourselves, so that myself as executive director or someone else mopping the floor or someone else, we all do this work together. The hierarchies and the privileged positions are in fact an impediment to doing this work. And I think appropriate technology, appropriate models are part and parcel of what we have to talk about today. Quickly, some of the work that we're planning to do with W2 in the next few years, we're advancing our media center across the street. For those of you who don't know, we won a competitive process with the City of Vancouver to occupy 8,800 square feet across the street, and we're building a community media center that's open in March. largely funded with volunteer sweat equity. We are very, very fiscally independent, and that's not really by choice, but by political circumstances. As Carol said, the more you create your project as a political project, the more alienated you become from the funding environment. And so W2 actually survives by selling beer. We sell coffee, and we gain a lot of economic independence from that process. Running a coffee shop will be an important way we can employ down City residents, but it's also a way that we can be financially independent so we do our media work. We're going to be hosting much of the community television production in Vancouver. We'll be hosting 2 radio stations, CGSS, FM, and Co-op Radio. We'll be bringing beautiful technology into the hands of local people and marginalized communities so that they can tell their stories more robustly. And we're also going to be looking at network culture so that what we learn in the downtown east side, which is really a microcosm of broader social issues and broader community issues, what we learn here around open source tools and open source strategies can be then replicated by our brothers and sisters in Toronto and Los Angeles and Barcelona. So really about networking and creating an alignment both within the neighborhood here, across sectors, across the province, across the country, but also across the world. Because people are not just in our circumstances dealing with these issues, we're dealing with these issues globally. And so I really encourage you to do breakouts in terms of open space today to really explore issues that are around peer training, around open source tactics, around broad strategies that can then be replicated and shared with other communities that are also dealing with several issues. And with that, we'll have the articulate final speaker wrap it up.